All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Ready to Escape High-Cost Inflexible Fiber Systems. It is hosted by Comtrend and Fonex, and our presenters today are Bradley Joe, Senior Director of Product Strategy, and Ab Quinlivan, VP of Business Development at Fonex. I'm Sarah Tomasi, the Marketing Manager here at Comtrend. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. We have everyone currently set on mute. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A chat, and we will address them as we see them. We would like this to feel more interactive, so please don't hesitate to enter your questions as you have them. All right, at this point, I'll turn it over to Brad to get started.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Thanks for the introduction. Just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for attending, to finding time really in your busy schedule to basically learn about something that we want to share with you. We believe there's some different things happening in the industry, and sometimes there's new technologies that make an impact, and it's something that hopefully you will have a better understanding after this particular webinar. All right. So what I'd like to do, as Sarah said, I'm the Director of Product Strategy here at Comtrend, and basically, historically, our focus at Comtrend has been focusing on Tier 2 to Tier 5 service providers, providing basically broadband solutions for them. And so I'd like to start off really just, again, give you a little background that, our focus has been, more recently, pretty much fiber is everything, as many of you know. And we provide solutions that bring fiber to the home, gateways and bridges, and also technologies inside the home. So again, historically, Comtrend is, again, a broadband solution provider. And what I want to say, if you take a quick look at Comtrend overall, here's what a diagram that looks at what many of you are dealing with as it relates to basically bringing broadband to your customers. And, at the core, the metro, the middle mile, all the pretty much expensive, important pieces to delivering a solution, but also, of course, is the access side. So historically, Comtrend has been in, again, ONTs and gateways inside the home. And what we're excited to really talk to you about, really, and again, part of this webinar, is to let you know that we've been looking for a missing piece. And that is, what we believe is TiBit OLT technology. Now, this is technology that Ab will be talking about in just a moment in more detail. But the bottom line is that together, with the ONT and with the OLT technology, a lot of the OLT technology out there today has been kind of enclosed systems, has been having, it does work in the industry. Obviously, many of you use current vendors already, such as Calix, and Nokia, et cetera. But the bottom line is that, Comtrend's been looking for a new solution, something that actually changed the game, because there are challenges and weaknesses of using traditional OLT systems, proprietary-based solutions. So what you see here on the diagram on the left is basically, the current environment you're currently in. But with TiBit, this new technology that we're talking about, this solution, it now creates kind of an open pond ecosystem, an open networking environment that allows you and many service providers to take back your network, not letting really another company control what you get to choose, the prices you pay, the timeline that you have to follow, basically giving you the power back into your network. And again, this is based on TiBit technology. And at Comtrend, what we've done is we've definitely committed to this ecosystem. Okay, and I'll be describing that. And again, Ab will describe that a little more in just a bit. But this is what this webinar is about getting you to understand something new that's currently happening in the market. It's actually being implemented in a lot of service providers today, in some major service providers, again, that I will talk about, but also a lot of small service providers are realizing this, and Comtrend wants to bring this to our traditional customers who otherwise would not know about it. So hopefully, together, at the end of the webinar, you'll have an understanding of what TiBit and OpenPond is. So with that said, just quickly, again, Comtrend, as I said, you've seen that we've been around 30 plus years for those that know us. And for those that do not know Comtrend yet, welcome. We'd love to spend time with you to learn about what we've done and some of the things that we offer to our service provider customers. But also what's exciting is this TiBit technology is something also supported by Fonex. Fonex is also a 30-year in the industry today. They've been doing all types of solutions for many types of customers. They've implemented anywhere from residential to MDUs to larger organizations, business implementations. And they are also, I should say, a TiBit certified provider. Our devices also are TiBit certified. And basically, they have experience in both generic implementing of broadband technology to customers, but also specifically have probably, I think Ab was 4 to 5 years of implementing TiBit already. So this is it's a new technology. A lot of people in terms of they don't know about it, but it is not new in terms of being used and being implemented by service providers. So with that said, what I'd like to do is transition this and introduce Ab, who I think Sarah already did introduce. And Ab, why don't you take it away?
Okay, great. Thanks.
Take over this slide. I'm sorry, you have to take over the slide. Yes.
Yeah, got it. All right. I think we're good. All right, excellent. Thank you very much, Bradley and Sarah. But yeah, no, very excited to share TiBit now, by Ciena with this group of folks. As Bradley said, it's not a new technology. TiBit came into existence about 7-8 years ago, and it was bolstered by literally a who's who in the telecom industry. The engineers that built the ASIC and developed the ASIC that sits on this micro plug to power the standards-based XGS-PON. This represents their 12th to 13th generation of PON chipset that they've been a part of. So they were formerly a company called Technovus that was acquired by somebody that we all know, love, hate, Broadcom, right? And so Broadcom thought highly enough about their technology that they acquired and all the IP that had to go with that. So that same group of engineers took a little break and then came back with the world's first 10 gig XGS-PON OLT. Interesting to note, as most startups, are kind of bootstrapping and trying to get money to back them, TiBit at the time had no problem whatsoever. Based on their track record, they immediately got offers and investments from Intel, Juniper, Ciena, and LGI, Liberty Global, who you guys know as the largest cable operator in the world. So that being said, they had a lot of trust and faith in the team already, and they worked diligently to bring this out. And again, have been commercially deploying this TiBit OLT for 5+ years now in the market space. And as Bradley noted, not only are deploying in tier 3s or tier 5s, tier 3s, tier 2s, but also in some of the largest operators in the world. And it's all based on that simple SFP plus form factor that you see that allows you to deploy one of these at a time. Doesn't make you have to, doesn't require that you buy a huge system, as you'll see as we move along. So what happened, the mindset, the thought process, the status quo for years and years, and I've worked for some of the largest OLT and broadband OEMs in North America, had been the traditional PON chassis, whether that be a large 16 rack unit chassis or a small 1 RU. The bottom line is they were purpose built specifically for back in the day, DSL, now PON, and moving to XGS PON, and required an appropriately sized backplane, as many of you guys have lived through upgrades with our legacy vendors where you had to either switch out backplanes or buy new chassis. The TiBit approach was totally different. They wanted to take advantage of the evolving core network, right, which included switches and routers. And that being said, they moved forward and have developed and deployed now for, like I mentioned, 5+ years, the TiBit microplug, which can work in any open switch. And that includes obviously Ciena, because it is a TiBit microplug by Ciena. Ciena did acquire TiBit as one of their lead investors in January 2nd or 3rd of this year. And Ciena has a commitment to the open networking, as well as, of course, deploying this TiBit microplug with their existing switch platforms as well. So that being said, we can place this in any open SFP plus 10 gig port. So as long as it's not keyed or you have to buy that, locked out, you can go ahead and deploy it. And that means you can use that switch for multiple functions. Even if there's just a little, a business part that happens to pop up on the fringe of your network, you can pop one of these OLTs in and serve 16, 32, 64, or 128 different customers from a single TiBit microplug.
Yeah, we actually have a question. It might go well with what you're talking about right now. They asked if there is an upgrade path beyond XGS-PON.
Yes, and every upgrade path so important to note is those engineers that were formerly of Technovus that was purchased by Broadcom, many of them stayed on at Broadcom and worked as Broadcom employees until the transition into TiBit based out of Petaluma. So every technology they have, not only this SFP plus that does 10 gig, but 25 gig and 50 gig will be developed also on SFP form factors. Now, obviously, probably moving to 28. An SFP 28 style SFP, but the upgrade path is not a new chassis. It's not a new backplane. It's, does my network support, do I have a core network that supports the latest and greatest and the newest bandwidth via the SFP? So the upgrade path is an SFP at a time. Because remember, you don't have to buy 8 of these SFPs or 16 or a chassis full of XGS-PON to deploy this. You can literally buy one of these sticks and deploy a XGS-PON network out of a switch in that location. So that's the upgrade path. As Bradley mentioned, it has been very disruptive. It is becoming more disruptive now in the tier 3s as tier 3s are realizing that they are paying a lot of money for ongoing operational expenses, and the capital dollars, as you'll see a little bit later, are meaningless compared to the operational costs, the cost that it takes to keep the network going into year 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. But with an open solution, you can take advantage of best in breed engineering, not just what a blue company does or a yellow company or a purple company does, but you're taking advantage of worldwide innovations, not just what a single company's group of engineers can come up with. So that being said, you have many choices in an open network. And very important to note, as Bradley mentioned, the partnership between Fonex and the TiBit microplug by Ciena and Comtrend. Fonex is the one throat to choke when we're talking about any of these networks. We're talking about an entire ecosystem. We're not just going to drop a plug on you or just drop an ONT on you and say, hey, good luck. We provide you with an entire portfolio, an entire ecosystem, which we support, from the ONT, the gateway, back into the switch, and then back to the core. And the way that this was able to happen is, on the OLT side, they sort of took a page out of the Wi-Fi, what Wi-Fi did, where they separated the control plane from the hardware, basically. So remember when you used to have to deploy Wi-Fi, you had to be concerned with the appliance or the switch that you put at the customer prem. Can it support 200 APs? Well, Wi-Fi quickly learned that this is not efficient, the Wi-Fi standards, and they took that control plane off and said it doesn't matter. As long as I have communication back to a virtual machine or a compute machine, then I'm fine. And so what TiBit did is they just provide a piece of hardware that has the PON MAC bridge on the physical OLT itself, and they point that back to a PON controller and end server that you can easily load on a very skinny VM and a very modest server, which again, most people have in their network, and they're able to spin up a VM to test this and or to deploy this commercially. So it looks a little bit like this from a high-level architecture standard, where you can have an open networking switch, but that could be a Sienna switch right there, right? That could be a purple switch or a blue switch right there. And all you need is that open SFP, 10 gig SFP plus, just a small VLAN nailed up for the management to speak with the microclimate, which is more the database side of it, and the PON controller is the PON manager, where you configure stuff. All these things can reside, as you'll see a couple slides from now, on the same appliance or switch, as long as there's compute on that switch as well. So many of the newest generation of white box switches from like UFI Space and EdgeCore have compute on board, so you're able to load the management because it has a CPU, a processor on there. You're able to add that all locally, or you can literally put it all on a VM, a private cloud, virtual machine, or public cloud for that matter. If you want to do that, we don't suggest doing that, but if you want to try it out that way, you can. So as I mentioned, this can be deployed one port at a time, as you see on the very top appliance here, or a little switch here. This happens to be a hardened switch that you can go put in a cabinet and let it cook and freeze out there if you'd like. And this could be a $2,000 or $3,000 appliance, or it quite literally could be a $180 MikroTik switch, and you're deployed a XGS-PON network. Obviously, we understand scale, and so as your network drives, and as your customer needs drive your network to grow, then obviously there's larger switches and appliances that you can grow it up to. And we have proven interop with up to 48 of these TiBit microplugs deployed in one switch in one location at a time. And so this touches on everything that you might encounter in a network: head ends, traditional central office type deployments, even strand mount in the cable operators that deploy this. They've had integration with strand mount, the typical strand mount DSLAMs that you see out there in the world, driving along country roads sometimes, that sit in the rain, snow, sleet, and bake in the heat. So extremely versatile in that case. And probably one of the most important things that really brings us home is the TiBit microplug by Sienna is compatible with every known standards-based XGS-PON chipset manufacturer in the world, right? So that means that you're not just locked into whatever your legacy vendor, who they chose to do a deal with, or which technology they chose to develop on. What I always like to say, and Bradley gets sick of it, and Sarah too, is that every ONT from its inception, they're born open. And it's not until the legacy vendors put their proprietary code to lock you out of deploying them on other vendors' OLTs do they become proprietary and unusable, except on that person's network. So that means a lot of things, commercially and technically. It means that if you happen to be deploying an OLT whose they chose a chipset that has a long lead time on it, like we saw during some of the COVID situations where you were 6 and 12 months out, and sometimes maybe more on ONTs, leaving stranded capital and operational expenses, leaving you exposed to stranded capital and operational expenses. That wasn't a good feeling. In this case, in the case of Fonex and Comtrend, I mean, Fonex is not the only integrator. We'd like to think we're the best, but we're, of course, right? But we're not the only integrator or distributor for this TiBit microplug. So if Fonex isn't stocking these, supporting you from an engineering, commercial, technical perspective, then you have choices. You can buy this other places. You don't have to buy it from Fonex. And the same thing goes for Comtrend. You see, these six chipsets. There are quite literally 50 different brands of XGS-PON ONTs out there in the marketplace. Now, we believe there's a solid, 3 or 4 in North America, like Comtrend, that have feet on the street, real engineers, real support, a real organization to back up what they're saying and fund their R in a history, a 30-year plus history to fund the R&D to bring new products out as the customers demand it. But if Comtrend isn't delivering what you want, you can buy another ONT and it will work on the TiBit OLT. So what that does is it holds Bradley, Sarah, myself, Fonex, and Comtrend. It holds us responsible for your satisfaction. So you don't have to feel locked in to blue, red, or gray or purple, right? You can go get this ecosystem, fulfill this ecosystem in other places. But what Fonex and Comtrend, again, as I mentioned before, we feel we've done a great job at putting together an ecosystem that we support, again, from the head end all the way down, to the ONT, to the gateway, and stand behind it 100%. So we feel that we have a chance to win and to earn your business, and from that standpoint. As I mentioned, the flexible deployment options, if you did have a switch or a router that had compute on board, CPU, you could put the PON controller and the microclimate database on the very same appliance and run it there. Or if you want to hedge out to the next town and you want to use that same appliance, but you want to keep your microclimate, your database centralized in your VM or your data center, where you feel comfortable that you have dual power and backup, power backup, then you can do it that way. Or if you are just deploying I hate to use the word dumb switch, but a switch that doesn't have compute on it, and it's just really an SFP plus 10 gig SFP plus container, then you can run in the cloud the microclimate and PON controller. I always use the example that Fonex has a large lab in Montreal, Canada. One of our lab environments that we run for the TiBit microplug, we store the microclimate and the PON controller in an AWS cloud data center that's located in Seattle. So we run the Montreal network from an AWS public cloud about 2,500, 3,000 miles away, and that's a network environment, lab environment that we work in all the time. So there are certainly possibilities for you to be very flexible, to allow you to be speed to market, speed to deployment, to beat your competitor to XGS PON in a specific market without having to worry about a bunch of equipment at that site. Another sort of example of the commitment to standards, especially when we start talking about the type of bandwidth that a 10 gig XGS PON network can give you, talking 10 up and 10 down. We're not talking the asymmetrical 1.2, 2.5 that our standard GPON has been giving us for faithfully for many years now. So it enables you to really initiate now a Type B protection to take care of those mission critical customers that you've negotiated probably pretty high level SLAs, service level agreements for uptime, downtime, and service delivery. So it allows you to be flexible there, but it's just another commitment to the standards. This is 100% standard based, and nothing needs to be understood about how you engineer a PON or PON splits. You can go for 8, 16, 32, 64, on up to 128, depending on the oversubscription ratios that your company feels you want to implement. Keeping with the theme of openness that Bradley started us off with, I mean, this is a totally open interface in regards to the management side. So with the REST API and NetConf Yang on board, and more importantly, an open REST API that's documented, right? So if you have an OS that you guys built yourselves, then that's great. We'll give you this, the published set of APIs that you can do the integration with. If you're one of something, I think it's 1,100 or 1,200 service providers in North America that use people like NAISC or Innovative Systems. Again, you have an open API that you can hand them to do integration into those existing billing billing systems as well. Keeping along the management theme, it's a very intuitive GUI interface that you have for management. You can see a couple of the screenshots here. As we get more involved in your selection process, we obviously take you through these screens more in depth, but they allow you to do individual configurations, set priorities, everything you would expect. The IP priorities 1 through 8, all the VLAN tagging and stacking, everything is involved here. Setting profiles for the different services you guys want to sell on your network. Upgrade 1 unit at a time or do global upgrades. It really depends on everything you've come to expect from your trusted legacy vendors of the past. Is obviously we're moving this forward into the management system that the TiBit microplug by Ciena is providing us. And that includes integrations in the open networking standards like Grafana. So I have personal experience with a large tier 2 provider that runs a network from North Carolina to Texas and everywhere in between, and drops off at about 1,500 different sites. Well, they've instituted a Grafana database for the cost of free that gives them 40 different analytic markers that they have identified that are important for their company to track on their network, including their long haul, especially where they're vastly spread out, a regional network. They've implemented that. And so as with the expertise that Fonex and Comtrend has and Fonex has as an integrator, we can introduce you to these things too, that again, cost $0 to implement across your network. Important to note too is in the whole management side of the world, sorry to go backwards, when we put this out there, there obviously is a fee for the management. It's very modest, as many of you who have talked to us in the past have seen. But there is no monthly fee to keep an ONT running on your network. Once you buy that ONT, it's your ONT. We're not going to brick that ONT or cut out services. We're not going to try to monetize your end user. We're not trying to sell stuff to your end user on your network and charge you for it. As I mentioned, when you go out to deploy this, you're going to have all sorts of different scenarios like the ones I showed earlier, whether it's central office, outdoor cabinets, campus wiring closet, or remote node. We have, we have 4 different microplugs that you can choose from. 2 of them are a conservative 20-kilometer optic, and the next 2 are 10-kilometer. Now we use very conservative, Fonex especially being a very conservative engineering focused company, uses very conservative numbers. So this 20 kilometers is a statement of a 1x32 or 64-way split. If you have a 1x8 run or a 1x16 run that you need to do, we can take you out to 30, 40 kilometers on that, but that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. But we like to, again, set the bar, at a little mid to low, and then surprise you when we say we can, yeah, of course we can do that 40 kilometers. We're not reinventing physics here. So this is, basic physics that we're adhering to, and dB loss calculations that you would do on any XGS or GPON network. And again, one of the things in open networking that's always nice. This is not an all or nothing. We're not having you choose a presidential candidate. We're not asking you to vote for A or B. We're not asking you to choose a new religion. We're simply asking you to consider a new technology that's open with 5 to 6 years of proven commercial deployments, and an ecosystem that's supported by one company, soup to nuts, just like your legacy OLT vendors. And you can simply do that by putting a passive coexistence module in the mix, a very inexpensive product by which you can insert the legacy PON, GPON, in that coexistence module, and then join the XGS PON and go out on that same PON, that very same PON or split, and address maybe a new need or a new service that a customer is asking for that happens to be on that PON split where you would insert this coexistence module. So in the case of a classic example is, garden style apartment where maybe there's apartments above, and there's, small businesses, and they want to upgrade their network, but you don't want to deploy a whole new chassis there, or a whole new, from your legacy OLT vendor. You can simply put a small switch in with a TiBit XGS-PON micro plug, install the coexistence module, and run out in that same PON, and just change out the PON, the GPON ONT to a Comtrend XGS-PON ONT. And now that customer has up to, whatever you want to give them, between 1 and 10 gigs.
Hey, Ab, we have a question.
Sure.
They said you mentioned that many of the big companies' ONTs are locked down. Does that mean that you couldn't take another manufacturer's ONT, say Calix or Atran, and convert it to work with TiBit?
You could. As I mentioned, every ONT from its inception with these chipsets is born standards-based. And it's not until the legacy OLT vendors or system vendors put their proprietary code that they get locked out. Now, I've seen in my 24 years in the access network, I've seen some examples where some Verizon properties get purchased, and they were using X vendor, but they want to move to Y vendor. I've seen that, but it happened to happen at very, very high volumes. Thousands and thousands and thousands of ONTs. And really, that's a decision that's not our decision. It's a decision of the legacy vendor. And typically it's a hard no, because it's not part of their business model. From its inception, TiBit was born on open PON, right? From the inception of the legacy vendors, the way that their business plan works is only if they control both sides of it, right? It starts to slip away very quickly if you're not selling both sides. Because as you know, an OLT or a chassis is a small, as you compare it to the cost of the ONTs that you're putting out on an edge on a decent sized network, it becomes a very small part of that capital expenditure equation. So selling that ONT by the legacy company is a very important part of their financial plan. So typically it's a hard no. Maybe they'll start changing their mind, right? Again, I've seen some very rare cases where that's happened in some regions, but it's not a typical behavior. So perfect segue into CapEx. As I mentioned, CapEx, usually when you compare any legacy vendor to another legacy vendor, they're within 5-10% of each other, worst case, right? And usually it's a decision on which company you feel more comfortable doing business with. So there's many different figures or circumstances that are helping you make that decision. Do you like this? Do you trust the salesperson? Do you trust the company who seems to have the most momentum and staying power in this network? And so typically those CapEx decisions are based on that. So except that what I just mentioned, and that question brings us to, in the case of open PON, where you have people like Fonex and people like Comtrend who have an open architected ecosystem that they're recommending, we can't just do that and be oblivious to price, right? If you're a closed system, once you buy my OLT, I can charge you just about whatever I want for the ONT, right? Within reason. As long as the other legacy vendors are within a couple bucks of that, I can do that. Whereas an open PON ONT like Comtrend, they're not just worried about 2 or 3 different vendors out there. They're worried about 20 legitimate ONT manufacturers out there that they need to make sure they're staying competitive with. So typically you'll see a price on an ONT be, you'll sometimes see 40% less, 20 to 30 to 40% less than a legacy proprietary closed architecture. And that's, of course, on a case-by-case basis. And but it is a very important factor. When there's competition, what happens to the price? It goes down. When there's no competition, the price remains the same, and you're sort of at the behest of the horse that you chose to ride at this at that particular time. Where you really think things really start to change is on the operational side with open PON. again, you're in an open network that's driven by world standards, not by legacy OLT vendor standards. So you have the capability to take advantage of that best in breed engineering, and at a much lower cost. Again, from the inception, the whole open PON idea was not to go put that cardboard figure in front of your office and ask how much software you want to buy every year, but it was to really work through actual problems and solve them at a very low cost. So typically, and I won't get into specific numbers. I mean, you guys know what you pay to operate your software, what the software costs you on your ONTs and in your core network. But on the open PON side, about 1,000 line, 500 line subscriber network, it might cost you anywhere between $3,000 and $6,000 a year to run, and that's with everything, right? And so go do the math on that with what you're paying currently, and I'm sure you'll have some more questions. But again, it's on a case by case basis, right? Because everyone negotiates their own deal. So second to last slide, here's just a real example of one of the Fonex deployments that we've done recently. Actually, this was a year or two ago. Just where this is easy to snap in by simply having a small switch on site at this retirement complex. We were in like 2 hours able to turn up, because they had existing fiber, right? Because an existing PON system that wasn't cutting the mustard. And so that being said, Fonex with Comtrend came in and had this thing up and running because it was already wired in several hours, and it's been running smoothly for the last year and a half. And this is in combination with the TiBit OLT by Ciena. I believe that's a edge core white box switch that has compute on board. So the microclimate and PON controller are located locally there. And then also we combine this with gateways, Wi-Fi gateways, along with the ONTs, which we typically see today in home networking. Just a small example. And that being said, this is my last slide, and really just demonstrates the commitment to the ecosystem and the support of the ecosystem. I mean, fortunately, Fonex is not only an integrator and a Comtrend partner and a TiBit by Ciena certified partner, but also is a full-blown distributor. And so we have access to third-party optics, splitters, patch cords, all that stuff. So we can ship you a box, like for example, this Kit 1 or Kit 2, that come with everything that you need to deploy a network. And I know that we've been working diligently for the last year and a half with Bradley's team and Sarah's team at Comtrend, doing joint meetings, and we've shipped out probably 20 plus of these kits to rural telcos over the last 9 to 6 months, really. And so we're getting tremendous feedback. But the important thing is this is a one-stop shop, one throat to choke. You don't have to change the behavior that you have with your existing OLT manufacturer, because we support it all. The danger, or the people were sort of scared to get into open networking initially, because they're like, I don't want to have to figure out what I need for this, that, and the other. If I stay with the legacy vendor, they just tell me. Well, we're just telling you, this is what it is, and we're supplying it all for you. So that being said, I will hand it over to Bradley and let us take us home.
All righty, thank you, Ab. Let's see here. That's correct. All righty. Again, I have to thank Ab for his time. I think the bottom line is, we at Comtrend are excited that basically ourselves and Fonex have a similar vision and really goal to bring this technology, this open PON message, this TiBit technology, really out to many people who haven't really seen it yet. It's really an alternative needs to be considered, as Ab said in his presentation, that in his discussion, that basically, there's just so many, really so much there that you didn't know and that's something that you really should be considering and looking at all these different things for your business. There's many more options out there, and depending on the situation, you don't have to just choose one. There's a lot of choices. So this open pond concept, as you're seeing here on the slide, just to highlight again, is pretty much something that Comtrend has made a commitment to do and focused on. We believe that it is something that our customers, particularly our customers, and again, I know there's Fonex customers also here online here, that want to, that are looking for alternatives, and we want to bring that to them. So what we've done at Comtrend, see if it goes to the next slide correctly. Oh, there it is. Wow, that's slow. Okay, so basically, we have an access again, we're focused on access, and we have fiber ONTs, gateways, home networking, et cetera, products that really focused on fiber. And that is, as an organization, where we're focused on. But again, the goal of this presentation is our commitment to this open pond direction. We do believe it's a disruptor and changes the game for many people. Something you could, as Ab discussed, maybe you don't have to do a forklift, in terms of your environment. Maybe you're something you could try out and do maybe in either a small new greenfield situation, or maybe even just an add-on to maybe an MDU or another situation that you wanted to try and do this coexistence module option and just do it in parallel. And we really are excited because we're seeing a lot of good ROI and feedback from our customers that basically they just had no idea. And a number of them do see it as a game changer for them, especially as it relates to reducing ROI. Okay, excuse me, increasing ROI and reducing the costs of implementations. The profitability is basically, there's a lot of pressure on profitability, I think, as many of you know. But the bottom line, this brings it back again, as I said earlier, brings back the power back to the service provider. So that's what we're excited about in terms of Comtrend really bringing products and solutions to our customers. And also, of course, in support of all this fiber, we still continue with our gateways, all tied to this open pond direction, Wi-Fi 6 products, and also our new Wi-Fi 6E gateway. So that's there. So again, to summarize it really for both, Fonex and Comtrend, we really have seen our customers that those had as easy as taking, for example, the kit that Ab talked about and literally get it up and running in just 2 to 4 hours. We say 4 hours here, but we've seen them just really start up and running with a setup within 2 hours. And that's how easy it is to get set up. Okay, it's really relative minimal effort. The kits that were put together from a execution perspective, everything you need, the support that Fonex provides, the support that we provide. Bottom line is that it's not as difficult as many people are concerned about. It's not like bringing another proprietary system into your support team. It's a lot simpler than that. And again, what we want is for you to actually see it to believe it. And that's one of the things that starting off with some type of sample kit that you could just try it yourself. And we want you to see it, prove that what we're saying and what others are saying are true. And then finally, again, as I said, the saving money, the OpEx especially, that long-term cost that instead of going up starts flattening or going down is something that's just extremely compelling. So with that said, we wanted, I thank you for the time to listen to myself and also to Ab, but maybe at this time, Sarah, it's time for a Q&A.
Yeah, we do have a couple of more questions. And then as we're answering these, if you all have any additional ones, feel free to continue to type them into the Q&A chat box. So the first one we had was, if TiBit can work with any switch, can I use TiBit with my Calix equipment?
Right. It's not an open network, and typically that will not work. I believe it's been tried, although unsuccessfully, right? But it can be used, as I said, starting at $165, $170 MikroTik switch, all the way on up to a $30,000, $40,000 Cadillac switch. It can be used anywhere in between. there, as long as it's an open 10 gig SFP plus port.
And then the next one was, how much effort, expertise is needed to take for the test setup in my lab?
So, and the good news is, as I mentioned before, we're not just dropping a stick on you or, dropping a switch on you and saying, have, good luck, have fun. We are there. We have a full support team, again, bolstered and supported by Comtrend on the back end as well, where we're taking through, depending on the skill sets that you have, we can log in or be on site to help the installation and get it running. Typically, 99.9% of what we do is a virtual, because when we ship you the kit, the software is loaded on the appliance or the switch, the server. And what you need to do is plug it in, and then we join you from there if you need that. Again, most of the time people are like, no, I can follow these directions, we'll get it going. As I get into some specific configuration or more technical questions, then we'll set up a webinar or a virtual meet to go through those. So haven't had anybody that could not get it going. So knock on wood.
Awesome. Okay, looks like that's it for questions. If you don't mind moving the slide one forward, Brad.
Okay.
All right, so if anyone is interested in learning more or next steps, you can set up a live management demo. Go ahead and just email anthony.scasio@comtrend.com up here on the screen. We will also be sending out a follow-up email with details about how to get in touch if you're interested in that, that demo or in a sample kit. So we just wanted to thank you for your time. We know, like Brad said, you guys are all busy, so we appreciate you joining us today. Brad, Ab, did you have any final thoughts before we end the webinar?
I did not. Thank you for listening.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, everyone. Again, we're excited about it. Again, just if you have time to learn about it, that's all we ask, is that you should take a look at what the other options are out there. So some amazing stuff we think that's available with this whole new open pond direction. But thank you all for your time.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, everyone. Take care. Bye.